Hello and welcome to the TM Medals podcast. Today, Jerry and I are joined by Lawrence Price, former rugby player, one of the best personal trainers in London. He's a Lucozade Sport ambassador, trainer on the fitness app Fiit. He's a men's fitness cover model, husband and father to two amazing kids. We have a great conversation. We talk about how the fitness industry has responded to the COVID crisis. We learn how movement is the greatest expression of life, and that sometimes you just have to put the tech away and focus on the feeling. Enjoy the podcast.
No, I just want to add before we start that unlike last week, I actually have done some exercise today.
Oh, yes, just get in there.
I'm pretty stoked about it, actually. But I went out on my bike, went around Hamilton Island in Rutland Water, got the customary flat tyre, but luckily this time, only about 500 yards from home. So it was a bit of a multi-sport event, cycling and then running, loping home.
And you also get the added dimension of testing out your man skills on the flat tire to fix it. I've seen police do that. It's an amazing
I'll be outsourcing that to an expert as soon as we finish this afternoon. Definitely.
You don't carry a puncture repair kit, Jerry?
No, of course I don't carry a puncture repair kit. That would be organised, Reece, wouldn't it? Come on.
Yeah. Only organised people do that. Like you, Reece. I don't either. I like the unknown quantity of thinking you might at any moment have to run home with the bike on your back.
Exactly. If all else fails, optimism will get us through, won't it? That's the thing.
Well, that nearly happened to me. Lawrence, we were out riding a few months ago on the bike that Jerry, you sent down to me, my lockdown mountain bike. And that happened to us, didn't it, Lawrence? I got a puncture, 3 punctures. I since learned it's called a snakebite puncture when you're hammering downhill so hard that the tire and the wheel compress against the inner tube. And 20 minutes, puncture repair kit in my bag, and I was good to go.
Good lad.
That was a proper steep sort of decline that you were hammering it down as well. I was quite impressed. I'm too scared to go that fast downhill, but to be fair, you weren't the snakebite. You earned it.
Thank you, mate. Well, you made up for it on the uphill. I was lagging behind a bit, I seem to remember. Great. Well, Lawrence, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Welcome officially to TM Medals. Great to have you on. Just thrilled to have this conversation about health and fitness. It's something that Jerry and I particularly enjoy talking about. And Jerry, you were talking the other day about a pretty big purchase that you've recently made.
Exciting news in the Osborne family. We have invested in a Peloton. My wife has a recurring back injury, which is just not getting any better. And we tried to go out cycling, and she's getting battered around a little bit. And she loves to run, but she can't do that anymore without injuring her back. I know it's something that Reece has been challenged by before as well. So we've bit the bullet, and we've gone for a Peloton. It arrives Monday, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Yeah.
Amazing. It's huge, and obviously, I'm sure that we're going to talk about this sector of the fitness industry today because it's more than growing. It's more than sort of becoming a sort of sideshow of the industry. It's almost become the industry this year, as everything went online, of course. But Peloton, fantastic company with some great coaches, and I suppose you're probably getting swept along, or your wife is getting swept along with the community as much as she's getting swept along with the content of the workouts as well, I imagine.
Well, I think there's 2 things I would raise on it. It's one is that Peloton have just captured the zeitgeist, haven't they? They've said, right, let's make a virtual engagement as real as possible. And it's something that Reece and I, are doing in our day-to-day business as well with leadership coaching now as well. But the other aspect of it is when I actually purchase something on this online, I have this awful negative feeling every time. Why didn't I think of that? Why did that business up here? So but very excited, and I think it's definitely something we could explore about community in virtual fitness now as well.
And of course, no punctures on the Peloton, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Lawrence, you've been in the industry now. Well, I don't want to give away your age, but it must be knocking on about 20 years that you've been involved in health and fitness. You must have seen more change in the past 6 months than in the last 16 years, perhaps. How has it changed for you specifically? What are you doing differently now? And then how is the industry getting through this new reality?
Well, I don't know how old you think I am, Reece. Just steady on a second. You know what? we saw this coming a mile off, us fitness trainers. We knew a few years ago, we were there standing in front, in person, being very up close and personal with our PT clients, saying to them, you know what, we could do this online. And we were sort of sending messages out into the World Wide Web and saying to everyone, listen, everyone needs a coach. One day everyone will have one, but it won't all be done in person. It'll be done online. You can save in terms of the geographical, time, financial constraints associated with regular PT, small group PT, one-on-one PT, whatever it might be. And actually, you can get that coaching, that two-way communication, that guidance, that troubleshooting, that accountability, the structure, everything that you get that we're seeing now with online coaching, you can get, and you can get it online. It doesn't have to be in person. People are like, no, stay. You know, I don't think so. I quite like going to the gym. Obviously, I quite like the change of environment. The environment is a change of mindset. It gets me out of the house, gets me away from work, and you know, all those very valid things that we're missing now. And it was quite a hard sell. It was quite a hard sell to get people to buy into your online training. And some people were cracking it. And there were, you know, lots of PTs getting obsessed with how do I take my business online so that I don't have to be in the gym at 6 a.m. and at 10 p.m. every day. And then, of course, out of nowhere, it swoops in. COVID comes, and the future, which may have been 3 or 4 years away, in which a lot of people would have had the benefits of a coach, albeit online, all of a sudden fast forwarded. And as we were saying earlier, it didn't just become a future sideshow of the industry, it became the industry as a whole. And of course, everyone was, pivoting. So whether it was the fitness industry or whatever industry, everyone was pivoting. And it was actually amazing. It was fantastic to see the fitness industry not just pivot, but stand up. This is how I feel about it. Stand up to support a population who were at risk for swapping one health risk for another by being in lockdown, not moving as much, not training, and all the health implications associated with inactivity. But the fitness industry stood up, and we saw loads of free classes on Instagram Lives. We saw lots of PTs trying to quickly put together and package their online offerings and send it out there. And what we saw was amazing. It was incredible, wasn't it? It was one of the, I think, you know, we talk about Joe Wicks as well with his PE classes. Yeah. And a lot of the things that we will remember the lockdown through will, I think, have been encapsulated by the fitness industry.
I'm talking about that. I was just going to ask, actually, because if I look back on the business community, I would say that there hasn't been as an enthusiastic adaptation as you've just described in the fitness industry. So, and I think part of that is what you say, you saw it coming. You saw the need for innovation at an early stage. If that's the same across the fitness industry, I think that's fascinating. But the question I'd ask you is that now the business community is kind of obsessed with when we're going to go back. Do you see the fitness industry going the same way?
Yeah, of course. I think as much as we love the sharing of information and the coaching element that can be shared online, we massively miss the feeling of being between the four walls, picking up something heavy, the camaraderie. You know, it's that sort of, you know, if anyone who's played for or with a team sport before, you know, misses that feeling, that sense of belonging, that tribal element, which clearly is lacking. And that's the missing kind of blind spot when it comes to online coaching. And I do think there'll be a sort of mergence of the two, an overlap between the freedoms that we'll have when online. You know, I've been, it's been amazing. I've been training clients who have been traveling, and they prop the phone up in the hotel, gym, whatever it might be, and they've completely bought into that mindset. Whereas pre-COVID, it was like, I'm on holiday, see you in a few weeks, sort of thing. So freedoms that come with the online coaching, but then we all want to come home to the gym. We all want to see our mates, and we all want to sort of enjoy all the little nuances, like, you know, the water cooler moments that you would call it in the business and the office sector. Right. You know, they're sort of the gym equivalents, and I think we'll see a little bit of a sort of combination of the two. What I think this will really kind of manifest itself in the fitness industry will be potentially in the smaller, more boutique-y gym setup. So again, maybe they were slightly on the back foot, the big kind of corporate gyms such as Pure Gym in the past, where it's, you know, cheap memberships, mass numbers, and it's easy. It's great, you know, pre-COVID, and this is all, as I have to say, this is all just completely anecdotal. I haven't seen any data to match this, and the dust is still settling, so we'll still wait and see what the data says. But I suspect that though the smaller gyms will have a better time of harnessing that sense of community, and people feel generally safer going into a gym with less footfall, knowing more of the faces around, knowing the 3 or 4 PTs who work there, as opposed to not knowing the 20-odd staff or whatever it might be. So I think people will start to combine maybe, fewer but more valued gym visits in that kind of area, combined with the online coaching element and the freedoms that brings.
That's a really interesting point. And the gyms that you and I go to, Lawrence, Fivo in Andover, that's exactly what Andre's done there. Before this even happened, he was trying to build a community rather than build a gym. And I think he's bouncing back pretty strongly now, because that is the aspect of physical training that people really miss, is that community side. One thing I'll mention about Peloton, and Jerry, I don't want to remind you how expensive the purchase was, but they require people to part with a significant amount of cash to invest in the bike and the technology, right? And that sunk cost, I think, probably anchors people to feel like they need to get value from it. So perhaps that will provide a bit of stickiness for companies like Peloton, and make sure that people stay engaged for months and months and months, because they have made that upfront purchase.
Yeah, I feel like people are, health is wealth is the term which more than ever people want to invest in their well-being and their health, and they value it because they see how vulnerable it can be, and they see how all the other trappings and where we've directed our finances and our motivation in the past. While those things are fun, your health is actually quite serious, and we kind of thought that in the 21st century we were all invincible. But I think people do want to invest more in their health and their wellness, and but I also think that I know Peloton's a massive company, and they I don't know the pricing structure, but I think they have broken down systems so you can do sort of £40 monthly payments as opposed to one-off payments for the bike, which is similar to a gym membership. It's that sort of concept that Fiit, who I'm involved with, of bring the gym home. I think if they can meet the price point in a similar capacity, people will see it as a bit of a no-brainer to make that switch.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there's definitely a sort of price that people are willing to pay to go and do regular fitness. I was going to follow up on that stickiness aspect that Reese mentioned, though, because I don't know if you were the same, Reese. When I left the military, the one thing one of the biggest concerns I had was we don't have a free gym anymore. Because in the military, you could just go to the gym, and you went to the gym pretty much every day. And that's where there's a lot of community spirit going on there, and it's kind of where these kind of conversations happen as well. So, and there was almost a sort of peer pressure to go to the gym every day. So, but when I left the military, people said, "God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that?" Well, funnily enough, when I joined the first company that I worked for, having left the army, it came with a gym membership which was discounted, which was still quite a considerable amount of money. It was a place called the Third Space in London. But when I'd made that payment, my God, I was there every day, and it really did have that element of stickiness. And I think you do, having made a commitment to it. I think there's something about following that up. Yeah, absolutely.
Lawrence, tell us more about Fiit.
Well, Fiit is again, it's about taking the gym home. It's about gamifying fitness and training sessions as well. So it's interactive. You can either wear the Fiit device or pair it up with an Apple Watch or a MyZone in order for your stats, which are calculated through movement reps that you do, heart rate variables. They'll put all these different bits of data together and calculate effort levels, so not fitness levels, but effort levels, so that you can see in front of you on the TV screen or your phone screen or your tablet, whatever you hook it up to, you can see in real time what your output is in the session, and you're being guided through it by your favorite trainers as you go. And they have an on-demand section where you can just pick your training sessions or participate in a sort of plan that goes on for a number of weeks. Or on the other side, there's a live leaderboard version where, similar to Peloton's offering as well, where you log in at a specific time for a specific class. And on the right-hand side of the screen, there'll be a leaderboard of everyone else in the world who's in that class at the same time as you. And based on the data it collates from your effort levels, it'll position you on the leaderboard in a certain position. And they've discovered that gets an extra 20% out of people's effort when you participate in the live workouts compared to the on-demand one. So Not only is it just an alternative for solution for the gym, but a lot of people are seeing it as a preferred option now as well.
No more hiding in the back of the class, Jerry.
I know exactly what you mean. It's called Strive to Survive. We used to do circuit training. It's very good, yeah. I was going to follow up actually and ask you about those performance metrics though, because I think people have always been driven by metrics in just day to day amateur fitness training. And certainly I can say that I've reached a certain stage in life where chasing a time for a half marathon is probably just not worth it now. It's getting longer and longer and longer. But you made a great comment, Lawrence, when we chatted before about movement being the greatest expression of life. And I can definitely say that when I go and do physical activity, I'm not competing to get a certain goal. I'm doing it because I want to feel better. It's the feeling of actually doing the exercise that actually motivates me to do it. Has that changed in lockdown? Are more people sort of coming to that way of thinking now, or are people still chasing those metrics?
No, I think I have mixed feelings on metrics. The key thing for me, if I'm going to use metrics, it needs to be for a reason. I don't want to become an automated human who has to move or train by numbers according to how many sets or reps or what my heart rate variable, whatever. Sometimes I want to just sort of put the measurables to one side and focus on the feeling, which is a sort of a new up and coming. I say it's new and up and coming. I mean, that concept has been around. I did a yoga class this morning for 90 minutes, and we're talking about teachings that are thousands of years of age, telling you to focus on the feeling and to listen to your body and so on. So it's not as if it's a new concept, but in the age where we do get obsessed with technology, it's important to remember that where it all starts and where it all begins, and that's with the physical and emotional self. So I think that during lockdown, I think a lot of people started to view movement as yes, an expression of life, but also a mechanism to almost cope, almost be the antidote to the issues that we find ourselves experiencing in modern day life. And I feel like it was happening before COVID, but of course, if you're locked in the same four walls all day, you often want to feel better, you want to feel good, and people then making that link with movement and feeling better because of obviously the serotonin, dopamine, and endorphin release, but also the psychological element of owning a part of the day. If you're losing control and there's this kind of choppy sea, which is the world right now, then returning to your body, that's the anchor, and we can anchor back to that every day, and we can anchor back to that feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction. And I genuinely feel that more people this year, as a result of what's happened, have been seeing fitness has almost the anchor back to their own emotional wellness, first and foremost, primarily above and beyond any kind of aesthetic goal. Aesthetics being something which traditionally, particularly in the sort of 80s and 90s, the big hangover from the bodybuilding era, we've all seen Pumping Iron and all those great old documentaries. Nothing wrong with that at all, but we were kind of, I think, missold fitness as being all about the aesthetics for many years, and still people do make that association. But now I feel we've turned the corner, and more people using fitness as a means for emotional wellness. Yes,
yeah, I think there's definitely something. It just reminded me of a great story. I think I've shared this with Reece before, but a friend of mine in Northern Ireland who decided he was going to get fit very late in life and had already sort of, I think, gone the other way a little bit further. Bought a bicycle and then found out by looking on the web that there was an ancient cycle route, ancient since the dawn of cycling, around where he lived in Northern Ireland. So he did the route, timed it, and uploaded his time. And he then received an email from the people that ran this site about this historical website. And they said, yeah, so we're delighted that you got in touch with us, but we thought we'd let you know that you've recorded the slowest time around this route in history. so I think there's a danger with metrics and getting too far into them for the day.
Yeah. Exactly. Sorry, just on that point, exactly. There's some times where if I'm training for a half marathon or was training for London Marathon this year, albeit before it got sort of cancelled, postponed, but there are times where I want to run because I want to know how far I can run a certain distance. There are other times I deliberately leave the phone, the watch at home, and I don't plan it. I don't know how long I'm going to be for. You want to interact with the topological landscape around you, and there's a primal element to sort of just being you and the earth and getting amongst it and getting that sense and that feeling. And we have to be careful. I think like any training session, you've got to go into the session knowing what your goal for that session is, and if it's to reconnect with yourself, if it's to use the body, as I say, as that emotional anchor, then do away with the metrics, go and enjoy yourself, have fun. If you're chasing down a performance-led goal and you've got to run a marathon in however many weeks, or you've got strength competition or whatever it might be, then metrics are pretty essential. So yeah.
I think that's a really important point, and that's certainly something that I have probably gotten on the wrong side of a few times. And it typically, with me, it typically leads to an injury of some kind, which of course is a disaster, personally. With the health and fitness space being so crowded now, Lawrence, with advice coming from all over the place, sometimes contradictory advice, it seems. What are the most, and we talked about a common issue there, but what are the other common things that you see people getting wrong?
Common things that I see people getting wrong. I mean, just for start, we just took time to touch about it there. Knowing themselves and knowing why they're doing it. I think the why is a big thing to keep coming back to. We've spoken about aesthetics, and we've spoken about what the images of the aesthetic images that we've been sort of told that that's the kind of that's the end goal to work towards. But I think that we all owe it to ourselves to try and avoid, although it's hard at times, to avoid the trap of falling into any kind of desire for external validation, and just getting to a point where you truly know yourself and you truly are in line with the core values that lead you to action out the fitness-led lifestyle. So I would say it takes a bit of soul searching, it takes a bit of discovery, it takes a few mistakes along the way. Fitness is like an ongoing journey around the world. You keep moving forward to a destination, but you've got so many different paths that you can choose, so many different modes of transport. So it takes a little bit of searching, it takes a little bit of experimentation and finding your groove. And I would say the mistake that a lot of people would possibly make when embarking upon a new fitness regime, or just embracing a fitness-led lifestyle, is just not knowing themselves and not knowing where they want to take it and why.
I think that's really interesting, and the point you raised, and I'm going to put a light on it because it's being very dark all of a sudden outside. I'm glad I went cycling this morning. But that point you raised on external validation, and surely that is a big thing in young people at the moment. I mean, and I'm talking about social media. The number of people who want to present themselves to the world in a certain way must be having an impact on the way they actually do physical exercise, if in fact they are doing it. What are you seeing in that space at the moment?
I feel really mixed. I see a good and a bad with social media. I do, and I see I've got some friends who have big followings and go out of their way to normalize the different body shapes and different body conditions and so on. And again, I see that as a great positive reassurance, moving away from the sort of power shift from it just purely being in the between the pages of a magazine as to what body image was all about. And I see more people with influence showing normality, which hopefully is reassuring. But on the flip side of that, with the sort of emergence of social media and Instagram, which is a visual platform, let's face it. So the striking visual images that get the most views, that hit those algorithm waves, rise to the top. And we did see a number of accounts becoming very popular at the start, which perhaps weren't fitness led. People with all the and people end up sort of developing all the power in that regard. You get a few 100,000 followers. You're powerful. The brands gravitate towards you. You're almost invested in, and then whatever message it is that you're peddling, even if it is just soft porn, let's face it, half the time, then that gets pushed out and that gets pushed out. And it almost took a number of years for that readdressing of that imbalance. And instead of the most powerful people having the least amount of knowledge, for the people with the most knowledge with the least amount of power slowly creeping up, and using social media as a genuine platform to talk about. I've seen doctors using Instagram, as a platform to talk about and to spread their message. And very slowly that cream started to rise to the top. And I feel like we've only kind of reached the tipping point in the last sort of 2 years, I suppose. But before then, it was a very tricky time for social media, a very tricky time indeed. And it was very unsettling for a lot of coaches who had maybe many years experiences in the, almost away from social media, back in the shadows, coaching people day in, day out, learning about how to help people on their fitness journey, all of a sudden being shoved away into oblivion as some new sort of, barely clothed individual makes it to the top of the algorithms on Instagram. And it was a real struggle for a few years to correct that imbalance, but I feel like we've made a bit of headway recently.
And Lawrence, is that a personal struggle for you? Because
yes,
we talk.
Does it sound like I'm upset?
we talk about the importance of focusing on your feelings and focusing on the why.
Mm.
But then, you know, we are drawn to a good-looking person in incredible shape, and you've been on the cover of men's fitness magazines before, and look great. But at the same time,
sorry, Reece, hasn't everyone been on the cover of Men's Fitness magazine?
Yeah.
Don't make him hold you up a copy, Jerry. He's probably got one back there. But you know, you must almost feel like you have to present that one side of yourself, but at the same time, you've got this set of values and this knowledge that you want to impart on the other hand. How do you mesh the two?
I had to figure this out for a while because it was never my plan or intention to become a topless cover model on, you know, a leading fitness magazine. And I still now think, what the hell was I you know, how did that happen? Because, you know, there are guys who are in the fitness industry who are, you know, a lot more muscular than me, a lot more toned, and, you know, the guys not in the fitness industry who are, and it was never really gold mine, because I just thought, it's not really my thing. I'm not really going in and out of the gym training for aesthetics every day, and I don't really want to push myself to be on, you know, it just wasn't the thing I was looking for. And then, you know, devoting myself to focusing on the feeling that a fitness-led lifestyle gave me, to exploring mental and emotional wellness through fitness, almost seeing myself as kind of like a free-range human, you know. And then, you know, it comes to pass that eventually, you know, for whatever reason, whatever sequence of events, through having that approach to life, that the byproduct of that turns out to be the aesthetics anyway. And it might be sort of third or fourth or fifth down the list. And this is what I want to say to people. I say, if you focus on fitness because of the feeling it gives you, if you focus on it for emotional well-being, and as well as the physical benefits in 10, 20, 30 years time, you know, that active longevity and all the other wonderful benefits that come to it, then almost as a sort of byproduct, the aesthetics kind of happen anyway. And the irony is that in my late and I say I'm proof of that argument, because I ended up on the cover of the bloody magazine, like unintentionally, by accidentally. You know, there must be something in that, right? You know, and I think about my fitness journey. It was probably my sort of mid to late 20s when I'd retired from rugby. Up to that point, I was always focusing on training for sports performance. And then I retired from rugby, and then I focused on training that was probably my period, as all sort of a lot of young men at that stage in life focusing on it for aesthetics. And the irony is, it wasn't until I switched that mindset in my 30s into focusing on it for the way it made me feel, that my body started to change and get leaner, and it was a lot more enjoyable because I was focusing on the process, because life is the process when it comes to training. I mean, the destination is the process. It's about how it makes you feel day in, day out. It's about sort of that, as I say, that fulfillment and that wellness element. It's not about these endpoints, which might be, you know, going on a 12-week body blitz to get to a certain point. What happens when you do away with all the enjoyment of the good stuff that happens in between just to get to this endpoint? You look at your body in the mirror like, oh, I've reached the endpoint now, and then just come crashing back down off the other side, and realizing there's a lack of fulfillment in that. It's a very long-winded answer to your question, Reece, but I think you get me.
It's a good answer, Lawrence. And I as you were describing it, it just struck me the parallels between that and business. I was talking to an organization the other day, and they were looking at their goals, and so many people focusing on what we would call lagging metrics. So things that you would see in a quarterly report, like revenue, net profit. By the time you know what those numbers are and how you performed, everything has already happened. There is nothing you can do to affect them. What at McChrystal Group, what we tell people to do is focus on the leading metrics, the things that you can have influence on day to day. And if you can have influence on them, you are motivated to, you know, turn that dial, move that lever. And that's exactly the same, I think, for health and fitness, right? You've got to break it down into its component parts and look at the leading indicators that will end up getting you to this, you know, lofty goal, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just smiling because I often see fitness as a metaphor for life in general. You know, it's that Stoic philosophy again. You're hunting out obstacles because, you know, it's in overcoming the obstacles that you get a bit stronger. It's the same when you train, you're actively breaking down muscle. You're seeking out the challenge of breaking down muscle so that it regenerates stronger, and you're enjoying that process, and you're getting into it, and you're you're enjoying that process. It's the same, I think, what you were just saying there in terms of the business metaphor for life as well. It all kind of overlaps, and we could probably trace a lot of this back to Stoic philosophy. Apparently it's quite popular with men our age in this day and age.
I was going to pick up on exactly. I was going to ask you exactly the same question Reece just asked you, and taking it through the other lens you mentioned, which is the fact that in the fitness world there was that bad period where people were judged on the visual appearance of themselves rather than how they feel. And actually, it was predisposed, going back to sort of pre-assumed, if you like, going back to what Reece said, that if you look good, you obviously felt good, and that we know now that that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's one of the challenges we have with in leadership, in the fact that it's not about chasing those metrics; it's about forming a team that will work together, and all the parts of the body, if you like, will come into their own. And reach their full potential with leadership. But that leads me on to a question for you: is the fact that you people come to you for advice, right? So by default, you're a leader. You're a leader of people that you teach, and so it's about, for you, making that connection with people to get them to achieve their best. And of course, that's even more difficult now you're doing it virtually. So what are your tips for great leadership and making that connection?
I'm glad you mentioned this, because I was confused. I was like, inviting me onto a leadership podcast. I was like, the only time I had to captain my rugby team back in the day, so maybe that. But when you put it like that, I suppose, again, I've learned a lot from Reece on this front, and I think he talks about the best forms of leadership. It's the gardener analogy, that you nurture the plants and you allow them to grow. And I kind of do that with my clients. I embed myself alongside their life. I listen to them. I want to understand their emotional state. I want to understand the things that stop them from achieving what they want to achieve, and I help them to advocate. But a lot of it is from listening with an open heart and trying to really connect with them on a certain level, which is it takes this kind of overlapping sort of linking between who they are and what they're bringing to the table, and who I am as a coach, and how I can help them, as opposed to me turning up and saying, this is my method, I'm going to inflict it upon you from day one, and it's this or nothing. But I suppose, and I apologize if this does sound like a big cliche, but my biggest leadership tip is to listen with compassion, and because that's something I do every session with my clients, to truly understand where they're at emotionally, so that I can truly understand where to take them physically and how the two marry together. So yeah, listening with compassion.
I think that's a great tip. I think that's a great tip for all leaders, actually. Thanks, Lawrence. That was great.
Lawrence, changing topic slightly, I'm curious, looking behind you, it looks like you're in a fairly epic garage gym. Garage gyms, home gyms, becoming very popular over the past few months, obviously. What have you got in yours, and what advice would you give to someone who wants to start working out at home?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Reece. I do need to change the backdrop. It doesn't look so glamorous. I don't know. I need to get like a big screen, but it kind of lets it down. But it's very, very simple. You need, you don't need much. You don't need much at all. If I was going to give a tip for someone who wants to be fit and stay active at home, I would say there are 3 different approaches to incorporate into your weekly cycles. Number one, the first one is you want to build some strength. You need a bit of weight. You need something which is going to help you to keep the muscles active from a neuromuscular point of view, but also to so there's use it or lose it, so you don't go into muscle atrophy so much, and that you actually pack on muscle around the various structures. Not just because it's great for bone density and joint health and this active longevity and staving off arthritic issues later on in life, but also, this is something a lot of people don't think about when it comes to their training and keeping their body fat percentage down, with considering their calorie turnovers, that your basal metabolic rate makes up for about 70% of your daily turnover of calories. And a lot of that is dictated by how much muscle mass that you have on. So this is the resting state in which you're just by existing, just by being you and sitting down, your body's turning over calories. A lot of that is based on your basal metabolic rate. So you need to build muscle. You need to do something that incorporates strength training into your routine. So I would recommend for that, for men, maybe something like, it can be a kettlebell that's about 20 kgs or so, depending on where you're at. Nothing sort of medium upper resistance, or a dumbbell. And for ladies, something around 10 kilograms and 12 kilograms. With that, you can do your goblet squats, you can do your single arm row, you can do your lunge, you can do all these big compound movements that enable you to pack on that musculoskeletal mass around the various structures. That's number one. It's a big one for me. That is making sure that you do work on building muscle and keeping muscle where it is, not letting it atrophy too much. And then number two is obviously movement, articulation of the joints. When we're sort of at work at our desk, when we're driving the car, these are very common movements that we'll do over and over and over again. But it doesn't sound like much, but it's a little bit like a bed sore. If you're lying on the same spot, over time, you start to develop issues. And it's the same with your joints. If they're just doing the same small little movements over and over again over the days, weeks, months, and years, it's the same kind of issue that you'll develop in terms of your joint health. So full articulation of joints, making sure that you embrace the human body for the full potential of movement that it's designed for. Yoga is a very popular one for this, but it doesn't have to be yoga. There are various animal flow type movements you can do. It's just you and your body weight in the floor. And again, there's so much online that you can learn for this as well. But slow articulation of the joints, loaded with just your body weight, getting all the surrounding small stabilizing muscles to work. That's such a huge one alongside your compound strength. And then the third one is obviously your aerobic capacity, your cardio strength as well. So that can be something as simple as walking up the hill in the morning. It could be something as simple as riding a bike, going for a jog, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you feel good. But if you have those three, and it might just be one of each week, then that's a massive tick in the box for your overall health and wellness. If you imagine, as I say, limiting the movement through the joints, limiting the movement through the body, adaptation is what the body is amazing at. It'll adapt to whatever stress and stimuli you put upon it. So if that range of movement is small, then your body's ability is going to be small, and its health will match. But if you add lots of variety of movements and add stress and stimuli in multiple different ways, then your body will wake up to that, and it'll adapt to that, and it'll soak it up like a sponge. So those are my three things. You don't need too much equipment at home, is what I'm saying. Just something heavy, one heavy item.
A small child, perhaps. I often incorporate my children into my workout. Yeah,
perfect.
I think that adaptation point is critical, and because the body will also adapt to you doing nothing, right? And when I think about the millions of people who are not commuting right now, there's hundreds, possibly up to 1,000 calories a day that people are not burning because they're not commuting. I remember looking at my step count on an average day when I travel into London, and I'd get up to nearly 10,000 steps a day easily, just walking to the train station, on the tube, off the tube to the office. And now there are some days when I don't leave my house, which is tragic, but easy to slip into that.
So this is the other big, as you quite rightly hit the nail on the head. That's your NEAT. So you have your 70% of your calorie output will be your basal metabolic rate, and then the next biggest element to turning over calories will be your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is your just general movement, walking up and down the stairs, walking, even if it's just to the bus or to the train or to your car. These are all little things that stack up. It's 15% of your daily calorie turnover and expenditure. And it's gone massively lacking, obviously, throughout lockdown. So if you think about that, it's a huge wedge of your daily calorie turnover. And if you're not doing those things, or you're allowing the muscles to atrophy, you're not doing the NEAT regularly, but you're still eating the same amount of calories and so on, then obviously it's a simple equation. There's calories are going to be stored somewhere. But I'd say for the health reasons, more than anything else, strength training and keep moving often. We're anyway, pre-COVID, arguably at risk of becoming an indoor species, and we respond well to being outdoors. We respond well to movement, to the sunlight, the rain, whatever the weather is. We like to be in and amongst it. So getting your NEAT up is a critical one, and a big one for me. So yeah.
I didn't know that. That's a really interesting insight. And actually, in fact, my wife and I were just talking about this when we were getting excited about the arrival of the Peloton, and the fact that we've stopped. And of course, the other thing about lockdown is that people have used that commuting time to be increasingly productive at work. So they've actually been sitting at their home office desks for that time. And we've seen lots and lots of literature about how productivity has shot up during lockdown. It's one of the arguments for never going back to the office again. But that's a really strong case that you make there, Lawrence. That walk to work, or just getting out at the time that you would walk to work, is really good. Listen, I've learned so much from you today, and I just wrote down your 3 tips here. And Reece, we might want to have a look at this about tips for business. Build neuromuscular strength in the business. Articulate the joints of the business, and something around aerobics about keeping it going for a long distance or something like that. I think we might be onto something there. But for me, Lawrence, I mean, the 2 key things that I've got from you today are that compassionate listening as a function of leadership, and that's, I think, something we can all take away as well, and really being clear on what your goals are. So been a great conversation with me. Happy to go on as long as we want, but I just wanted to make sure we recorded those points that I've taken from you today. How about you, Reece?
No, well said. And I think that, as we said at the start, there are so many parallels between fitness and life, business, which is why it's been great talking to you, Lawrence. As always, dropping knowledge all over the place on us. So thank you for that. Where can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
My website is www.lawrenceprice.co.uk, and my Instagram handle is lawrenceprice_.
Fantastic. Well, everyone go and check Lawrence out. Lawrence, thanks again. It's been a pleasure. And everyone, thank you for listening, and look forward to seeing you next time on TM Metals.